Welcome, everybody, to Write Better Together. I'm Jon Meyers. Hey, look, everybody, it's Emily Brooks.
Hello, Jon Meyers.
Hi. What are we talking about today? Why
I'm
are you
getting a
yawning? You're yawning already. We just
No, that was
started.
me. That was me realizing I was getting a phone call.
Oh. Well, we're transparent here, so a
Yeah.
phone call is better than yawning at my exciting opening.
No, I wasn't yawning. I was just shocked. Okay.
Right.
We are talking about how you can know when you're done revising. Trust your instincts.
So that's our big idea.
That's our big idea. Then we're going to talk about our responses to call to actions. We're going to do that first, then the big idea. Then I'm going to try to stump Jon Meyers with a fact.
Great.
We're going to have a new call to action, so be listening for that.
It's really good this time.
It is. I don't know what it is, but I believe you. And then we have a mystery bag, which I've been told has
the return of the mystery. It was missing. It was missing in a previous episode. It's returned.
But I've been told that good things are coming. If anybody is like me and they don't like the mystery bag, potential things might happen.
Well, at some point that they will happen. They're bound to happen. So the cool thing about when we talk about this at the beginning is that so 9 out of 10 podcasts I listen to, they're like, so what'd you do this week? Or, oh, I saw this funny clip on the internet. Oh, I read this article on the internet. They're all like in their bubble on the internet, and we love other podcasts, so I'm not being critical, although I am a little bit. But ours are intentionally that we're out of our bubble, and we get out of the bubble, and we have an adventure. We can turn anything into an adventure out of the bubble. So, would you like to start with your issue?
Here's the thing.
Yes.
Getting out of my bubble this week meant going to my parents' house, which we've talked about. Get out of your parents' basement. Okay, I wasn't in my parents' basement, but I was just at my parents' house because of these storms that were supposed to hit. And so we were supposed to record 2 episodes yesterday, and we were like, no, I might lose internet. I might have to run to a safe place. I'm going to be surrounded by children because I'm going to be at my parents' house with my family, and everybody's there to stay safe. Well, the storms didn't happen. There was maybe 30 minutes of lightning and rain, and it was over. And it was kind of strangely disappointing. It's kind of like when you go to the doctor and you pay them a ton of money to figure out what's wrong with you, and then they say, no, nothing's wrong with you. And you're like, well, was that a waste? Was that a waste of money? It's not a waste of money. Better safe than sorry. Better to figure out that you're fine. I'm a hypochondriac. I go to the doctor and pay a lot of money a lot just to hear that I'm fine. But yeah, it kind of felt like that.
I'm biting my tongue on this topic.
You have
until yesterday, I was of the mind that the show must go on, that you never cancel. I don't care if there's a blizzard. I don't care if. So I got in trouble. So back in my corporate days, I got in trouble for they closed the mall, and I was like a district/regional manager, and I went and opened the store anyway and went on the radio and told people to come in the back door because there was 3 inches of snow, and I'm from Chicago, and you don't close for 3 inches of snow. And so the show must go on. However, the last time that I was like this, people died in the tornado, right? And so people could have died yesterday. Yeah. And so when Emily texts me and I need to cancel and go to my mom's house, first of all, she got out of the bubble. So that's the goal of the story, right? Is to get out of the bubble. And second of all, what's the downside? Well, what's the upside of my previous position. There, like there isn't any. Like, I'm not going to put Emily's life in danger, and she's
Right.
in the path of a storm. Um,
Well, that's
uh,
the thing. Like
Go ahead.
like when the big Nashville tornado happened, nobody knew it. Like a lot of people were just taken by surprise. And so whenever they are like just being extra cautious, I'm like, okay, that's fine. I get it. To be honest, I wasn't that worried about it. We just thought it would be good to hang out with the family.
In
But I
case it was
also
their
thought
last day together.
but even if I was here at recording, that thunder was really loud, and I could have lost internet. So I think it was a good choice. But yeah,
I got in my convertible, put the top down, and drove out to the creamery, which we'll talk about in the next episode.
yes, I'm very excited
And
because I was. Can I give just a little preview to that?
sure,
I I was talking about how like I was at my parents' house staying safe, and he was like, "I'm having a cheese catastrophe," and I was like, "What does that
a cheese
mean?"
emergency.
I
Uh,
still don't know what it means.
you'll find out next
We'll find
episode,
out in an hour.
along with our listeners. And I sent you, to bring this full circle, I sent you clips of birds chirping, and
Yes, you did, and they
tornadoes
were
don't come when the birds
robins.
are chirping. So that's how
Yes,
I knew it was safe to go out.
and you were out of your bubble,
I was
listening
out
to
of
the
my bubble. The
birds.
story I was going to tell, I won't tell now. So we would have recorded on Dingus Tuesday,
Yes,
and so that blew up this entire conversation. And because look, I went to the farmers market on Saturday, and I have pussy willows. If you watched the previous episode, you know what pussy willows represent.
yep.
This woman had, and I'm gonna have to. We'll put her name in the show notes. I have her card, and I don't have it, and so I had it 5 minutes ago, and so we'll put her name in the show notes, or I'll mention it if I find it between the next episode. And
Yes, support your local farmers market.
correct, support your local farmers market. So her entire booth was pussy willows in the middle. It was like more pussy willows than you've ever seen outside of the wild. And I'm like, oh, and so this was the Saturday before Easter, before Dingus Day. And I'm like, you must have sold it. I was there right at closing time, which I don't like to do. I was like, you must have sold a bunch of these for Dingus Day. And she's like, what? What's Dingus Day? And so I got to teach her what Dingus Day was.
That's
the woman
hilarious.
that was totally prepared to celebrate Dingus Day with all of her pussy willows, and so she gave me those for free. So
Wow.
shout out to her, the mystery woman.
That is amazing.
And she did not spank me with them, thank goodness, because that's not appropriate anymore. And so that was my short story, and that I still was able to put into this point. So, anyway,
by the way, I know we need to get to our call to action responses, but I will just say I did tell my husband about Dingus Day after it was done. And I told him about throwing ice water on your wife.
And
he said, why would I throw ice water in my own bed?
So it wasn't protecting you, it's protecting the
bed. Exactly.
What if you had a water bed? You would. Everyone that does that has a waterbed, and I assume you did not hit him over the head with a dish.
No, he said he would be very angry if I did that. So
I who wouldn't be?
Yeah.
So
all right.
Yes,
we have call to action responses.
Oh, are we doing the sound effect?
No.
Okay.
It really didn't work last time. We're having technical difficulties with sound effects, so I had to like completely take them out of the last video.
All right.
So to avoid that, we're not going to have sound effects anymore. I'm just going to say, time for this.
You're the sound effect.
Yeah.
All right. So we are. I like that. Do that. We are having viewer responses or listener responses to anything from our past episodes, which is you're more than allowed to do. And I guess I'll start with Ashley Hargrove in a previous episode. Previously on Write Better Together. Screenwriter Bob Sines issued a live call to action to some people at a film festival in Sevierville, Tennessee, and Ashley Hargrove was in the audience, and his call to action was go outside and create a log line based on the first thing you see. We're eventually going to put up a glossary page, and we will put in the glossary page what a log line is, in case you don't know. But Ashley has a perfect one, and so I will share hers with you, and you will see what one is. My favorite part of the podcast is me scrolling through my phone looking for something. All right, Ashley Hargrove, her log line. The first thing that she saw, she was on a hike, by the way, when she texted this, out of her bubble. And an empty water bottle must figure out how to find water or risk being thrown away forever.
Oh.
Do you want to?
That sounds like a Pixar movie.
It does.
Turning an inanimate object into something that has feelings.
That is correct. So it has every element of a proper log line. A proper log line has a protagonist or a hero. It has a goal. We have the goal for the water bottle, and it has an obstacle. That's all you need for a log line.
Yeah, it has definitely that element of like, I now sympathize with this water bottle.
Yep. And so it has everything you need. Mm-hmm. There are certain people, I am among them. William Martell, one of my heroes. You just got a William Martell book. He recommends that you have a fourth element every once in a while, and more often than not, of a ticking time bomb or a ticking time clock, before the before the farm is repossessed, or before midnight, or before the baby's born. And so that is just a way for the audience to keep track of where they're at in the story the entire time. And it's also it ups the stakes a little bit, and adds more to the conflict. But so they're not required, but you could do it.
Yeah, I mean, it says like before being thrown out. So you could add something like before being thrown out, when the trash people, when the garbage,
before the recyclery people come.
Before trash day. I don't know.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So now you have the ticking time clock.
Yeah.
There we go. We taught them something.
Yeah. So we also have a response from Katie. Katie's
Lucas. My editor of this magazine right here.
Yes. Which we gave away several copies of those recently.
Oh, we did. So what did Katie have to say? And then I'll tell you who we gave those away to.
Yeah. So she says, and this is the response to, we asked, how are you getting out of your bubble? Because that's what we ask each other at the beginning of every episode. And she had some good thoughts on it. She said, I think a lot of people right now are eager to connect with others. Program attendance for adults is booming at my library right now. I see a lot of hesitation at library community events from newcomers or when regulars are trying new skills, but the results are consistently and overwhelmingly that attendees have positive experiences, enjoyed meeting new people, and learned new things. It's good to get out of our bubbles, and I think writers in particular have far too few advocates for them to get together and mingle.
So Katie also manages a library, and as you can tell, besides being the editor of WriterCon magazine, and like, you think we're busy. She is always, like, besides being the editor of a magazine that comes out 8 times a year, she's always like she's at work or at a conference about librarian science stuff. And so she's literally always working. Anyway, so and then so we gave at the film festival in Sevierville, we gave away 3 free subscriptions, and we may have given away 2 extra on top of those 3. And Ashley Hargrove was one of the winners. Danny Martinek is one of the winners, and Lauren, who I won't say her last name because she's a minor, and she was one of the winners, but she was also one of the winners at the film festival. Yes. And with her animation project, which was amazing.
Awesome. All right, Jon Meyers, you want to tell us what the big idea is today?
Oh.
And why you came up with it?
Today's big idea is how you know when you're done revising. People like people will I'm a screenwriter, so people will be like, I've already revised this script 6 times, 7 times. My beta readers have read it. I did a table read. How do I know I'm done? What are, as a memoirist fantasy novelist, what is your issue with that topic?
Oh my goodness. Okay, so I'm working on a novel right now that I wrote 2 years ago, and I spent last summer revising it. And I just had another read through from people, and so I'm about to revise it again, and it's going to be the sixth or seventh revision. I actually did not know when it was done, or at least was lazy about it, because I submitted it to agents before it was ready. The reason I know it wasn't ready is because one, I didn't get responses from the agents, and I know that that can just be for many, many other reasons. But two, I felt like the characters weren't ready, and I didn't know that until I talked to an editor, not someone like I reached out to her. She didn't reach out to me. I talked to her, and she was like, "Oh, this is really good, but your characters aren't developed enough as far as like you need a very clear goal that they have in a clear way that they change throughout the story." And I had that, but it wasn't strong enough. And so I went through and revised it for that. And now I have a much better sense of that. And then I got feedback from other people, and they said, this is really close. Here are a few things to change. And so for me, like, I needed to have feedback. I needed, at my level of writing, I needed to have that feedback to go, okay, you're seeing things that I'm not seeing.
Valid. Also, sometimes another valid answer is sometimes there's just a deadline, right? So the contest
Yeah.
deadline is October 31st, or you have a contract and it has to be done in 6 weeks, and it has to be done November 11th or whatever. And it's just when it's 11:59 that day, it's done. It's sort of like time's up, and it's
Yeah.
whatever is done is done. So we have a clip now from David Lynch, and he will tell us how he knows something is done. And I happen to agree with this in a different way. So here we go. And I will just say stop when I want to say something, and then you stop whenever you want to say something. How does that sound?
Yeah, I'm excited to hear this because I haven't seen this. So I'm curious
I'm,
to see what he has to say.
I'm excited to watch your expression.
The time has come for the incredible checking stick. This checking stick is made up of many different components, and it starts with this ball. It has to be a ball shape, a globe, and it's picking up in all directions. Then it goes to this metal, and this metal will aim the ball at where you want to focus. From there, it goes down this natural material, wood. Wood is such a blessing for humanity. It goes down the natural material, wood, and it comes to another natural material,
Pause.
cotton string.
Pause. So we went a little longer than we should have, but so we have a ball that we don't know the material of. We have a metal rod that is man-made material. We have a wooden rod, which is a natural material. And now we are entering to the there's 2 more elements to the checking stick.
Okay.
And
I have no idea where this is going.
and you also, and so we're not going to cut this part out. Emily had to leave the room. She was so taken aback by the checking stick. She had to leave the room and bring her dog in, Winnie, just to show Winnie the checking stick.
Yeah,
Right?
I'm just so excited. I had to show her.
There you go.
No, she was scratching on the door because it started raining and she got scared.
Oh, okay. Continue.
So.
And it goes through the string to this tab, and it goes to metal. So this stick is focusing on what you want to focus on.
All right, pause. Stop.
Magnifier.
Okay.
Okay.
What is
What
happening?
do you think we're going to do? What do you think is going to happen next?
I have no idea.
We have man-made materials and we have natural materials. Where do you think this is going?
Honestly, I have no idea.
All right, here we go. Continue.
And then you set the tab on your heart and you get a feeling. You get a feeling for what you're focusing on. Then you set the tab on your brain and you get a thinking of what is going on with what you're focusing upon. And you put those two things together and it can help you indicate the next move.
Okay, stop.
But
pause.
Don't really.
This is getting really weird.
So you have a thinking feeling, right?
I have a thinking
And
feeling.
don't you have a thinking feeling? Like so we talked about this before. When I think pray, right? So I'm thinking and praying at the same time. That's similar to a thinking feeling. And he's about to define that for you, but are you not in that moment? Like, can you not envision a time when you are thinking and feeling at the same time?
Like all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. Continue.
I just want to know what the stick has to do with it.
You need a checking stick because every human being has what they call intuition, a thinking feeling. But this just helps focus that intuition and gives you maybe perhaps more of an indication of the next step in the work. In this case, I'm getting a feeling close but no cigar, and a thinking that I may have to destroy before I can get this thing to where I want it to be.
I'm shaking my head
So,
vociferously.
This
Oh, are you telling me to pause it?
No, I'm just shaking my head because I'm disagreeing, and the people listening don't know that.
Oh.
incredible checking stick can help us figure out the next move. And it's a tasty little piece.
So it's a tasty little piece. So he literally says you don't need the checking stick because you have it. Some people say trust your gut. I hate that phrase, but you can trust your instinct, and your instinct is your thinking feeling. And we do that all the time. There's a time where you know that it's done. I'm not against letting other people chime in and having experts, but there are people who have worked on the same screenplay for 10 years, and that's too long. Sorry if you're out there and you've done that. That's too long. Put it away. Trust your gut. I hate that phrase. Trust your instinct, and then move on to the next thing. Because the more you write, when you're on screenplay number 6 or 7, you learn by doing, and you're just better at it, right? And so when you pull out screenplay number 1, after you're done with screenplay number 7, you're a different person, and your instincts are better, your instincts are sharper, and you see things that you would have never seen had you not written all of those other things.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I'm glad I don't need the thinking feeling stick. Second, yes. So, and I think I'm trying to organize my thoughts. When I was like a teenager, I wrote a novel, And I rewrote it and rewrote it and rewrote it and rewrote it because it never felt done. But now I understand it's because, like you said, I was becoming a better writer, and the story wasn't ever building, like the story was never as good as I was getting. And so I always was going to critique it because I was getting better. And so if you feel like I've mentioned before that my husband's he paints many characters, and he always goes back and critiques them. And one of the conversations we have about that, since he does that and I do my writing, is if you are seeing something wrong with your work, it means you're getting better.
I agree 100%.
Yeah. So I think when you are still in the learning process, that like instinct is still developing because you're still growing, and it may not feel done because you have a higher standard than you did before, or a different standard than you did before.
So writer John McNally, who I was listening to Emily while I was turned around backwards rudely. If you're watching on the
I
video.
love the consistency. Every episode, we're going to get Jon Meyers' bookshelf.
I did not prepare to talk about Jon McNally. I've interviewed him before for my blog, Filmic the Page, and this book, The Promise of Failure, says you need to fail over and over and over and over to eventually get to the point where you succeed. I just totally oversimplified a very deep book, but in my interview, and actually in the past I've had students interview him over Zoom too. He has this theory that I agree with, and it's in a line with the checking stick. And here's what his theory is. His theory is that those moments where you write and it's just like you don't even know where it's coming from, or I would call it divine inspiration. Other people would call it the universe or energy or whatever. It's your subconscious, and you're like, I just wrote 3 pages. Where did that come from? And where the words are just flying, there's no struggle. Those moments come from your subconscious. And then the second you go to apply a theme to it, that's your thinking. So your subconscious is your feeling, and then you go to apply a theme to it, that's your thinking, and your thinking gets in the way of that flow. Like once you start second guessing it or applying parameters to it, it stifles the creative part of your output. There's still a thinking element that's involved, because you have the market in mind, and you have the audience in mind, and so you have all of these. You have budget in mind if you're a screenwriter, so you have these other things in mind, but the theme can interfere with the flow of the subconscious.
Yeah, I would say theme, as well as anything that you're overthinking about, like even if it's like, well, are my parents going to like this, or is this particular agent going to like this? Like I when I wrote this novel that I was just talking about, I decided I'm not going to think about anything other than just enjoying this process and telling the best story that I want to read. And I wrote so much more during my times writing than usual, because there was nothing interrupting just the flow of the writing, because I was just, how do I tell this story the best that I can?
And that's what we all should do. We should tell our story with our voice, and with a script, that's your calling card. And so Bob Sines, who we had on in a previous episode, he'll tell you the story where his calling card, his script that opened so many doors for Hallmark and Great American Family, was his R-rated extracurricular activities. Yes. And but through that script where he wrote with the knowledge that he had, with the knowledge that he had, and the abilities and the skill that he had, he wrote the story he wanted to tell. Yes. And people could see that, and it opened the doors.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I was shaking my head vociferously. This would be
Yeah.
the last thing I had to say about this. I agree with David Lynch of 99% of the time. And I don't think like he's really big on not explaining the ending, not explaining the meaning, right? Because the audience, this is a whole nother topic, but the audience brings meaning with them to a film or to a book. And uh, we'll talk about that in some other day. But the 1% where I disagree with, he said destroy that. Like he said destroy and start over.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
So I like, just was he referring to like destroy what you've written or destroy what you've done so far?
So the painting that he pointed the stick at, he's like, close but no cigar. The solution is destroy it and start over.
So maybe that applies to painting, but for writing, I don't delete anything. I use Scrivener, and when you delete something, it goes just into a little folder. It doesn't actually disappear. I call that the compost pile. Because I'm a gardener and that relates to me. But when you throw away trash, it doesn't become trash, it becomes something valuable that can feed the soil. So I always save everything because it can always come up later, or I can pull from that. And also, like I was talking about earlier with you becoming a better writer, sometimes you have stories where you go, you know what, I may never go back to that because that was what I needed to write at the time, and that exhibits what I was able to write at the time. Going back to it now would only destroy that, and it's okay to just have that exist as it is.
And I know that in screenwriting, I know that some people trash and start over, but like you, I use Final Draft, and every time I sit down at Final Draft, I start a new file. And because it doesn't
me
cost
too. That's what I
anything
do
to
too.
start a new file, right?
Yeah.
And then so if I delete a scene, it still exists on the file
Yes.
dated September 12th, blah 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 blah. And because you might revive that scene later, you might like, oh, well, that scene served this purpose that I can't serve in any other way other than that particular scene. So you might bring it back, and it's there. You don't have to rewrite it, and you don't have to trust your memory. And so. I'm trying to think of an example where I just said this was trash and I threw it away. I think there's always something salvageable, and I can't think of an example. Again, trust your gut. If it was trash, there's things on the outline that are trash, which we'll talk about people that outline and people don't in a future episode. But by the time I'm actually writing the product, I called it a product, Emily. By the time I'm watching a product or writing the product, scenes get trashed, but I don't think I would salvage it and turn it into something else before I would just blow it up, I think.
Yeah, I agree. So so I explained like how my process is I like to get feedback, and as I know that as I become more experienced, I do feel that instinct more. But how have you gotten to a point where you feel like, yeah, I know this is done?
So
what is that like for you?
I will do a first draft, and my first drafts are never sloppy, right? They're being revised along the way. And back in the day when I would spend a year on a screenplay, which I don't have the luxury of that anymore, and nor should I don't think. I would spend 9 months on research and outlining, and then the 3 months to write it was fun, right? Because the stories, all the heavy lifting, all the furniture moving is already done in the outline.
Right.
In between the outline and the actual script, I'll write, some people call it a scriptment. Some people call it a prose treatment, not a sales treatment, but a prose treatment. And for a 100-page script, that might be 30 pages, 36 pages, 34 pages. And it's just like a prose short story version. And there'll be a couple jokes in there, a couple lines of dialogue, but it's just every scene, a paragraph for every scene. And then so all the hard work is done. And then once I have the first draft, I have a group of beta readers that I trust, and I send it out to them. And they will all tear it to shreds because that's why I have them, and not because I don't want pats on the back, right? And Tolly Archer, shout out to Tolly Archer, is the best plot hole fixer or plot hole recognizer ever. And she'll be like, "Wow, how could that happen?" Because they never even went to the yogurt store or whatever. And I'm like, "Oh, darn, you're right." And so she'll find that. David Hal Chester, who we will have on a future episode. He's my biggest fan. He's president of my he's president of my cheerleading fan club, and he's really good at sentence level. And so everyone of my beta readers are all good at something. One's good at character, one right, and they're good at overall too. And so then once I do that draft, whatever draft that is, let's say it's draft 5 or 6, then I do a table read, and I don't participate in the table read. And so I think this is a good piece of advice, even though we're more of a lifestyle podcast instead of a writing tip podcast, but I think it's important. Assemble, don't use your friends. Just like go to a community college, go to your local college, go to your high school and get actors, pay them. Even if you have to just pay them in pizza or food, feed them well, and don't participate in it. Sit there. Don't even be the narrator. Don't be the person that reads the action blocks. Sit there and take notes. And when you have actors reading it, the line readings sound different. And so you're going to change sentences. And so you're sitting there with a paper copy of the script and fixing that. And then plus they're actors. And so they'll give you their opinion. There you go. There's my answer.
Hey, Jon Meyers.
Oh, my favorite part of the show.
So it's National Poetry Month.
Yes, it is. Do I win?
No. So my question for you is,
yes,
do you know one of the most controversial poems?
I know a controversial poem that I teach.
Oh.
Every once in a while.
Well, now I'm wondering if you know this one. Okay, what is it?
E.E. Cummins with an impronounceable title.
I don't know this one, I don't think.
Well, is yours by E.E.
No,
Cummings?
mine is different. Mine is not by E.E. Cummings, but now I have to know what yours is.
Okay,
I'll reveal mine.
I'll tell you. Oh, you want to know my thing first? You want to know my guess first?
Yes.
Okay, so in E.E. Cummins' book called 95 Poems.
What? How did you get that so fast?
It's the power of the Jon Meyers bookshelf. The first poem, which he was at this point in his career, he was adamant that the poems would only be referred to by the page number that they were on. And so it doesn't have a title. And but people, and I'll get to this in a second, people will call it by the first character in the poem.
Oh, gotcha.
And there's the poem. Try reading that. And so we'll put it in the show notes.
Yes.
And for the people listening, this part will not make any sense. So it's a vertical shaft of letters and or numbers. That could be an L or it could be a 1 at the top.
Yeah.
So we don't know. However, it's on the page 1 of this book. So the assumption is that it's a 1, but is it? Or is this entire thing a 1? If you were to take these letters and type them across horizontally, E.E. Cummins would roll in his grave because he would be adamantly against you doing that. But it says a leaf falls, and then inside a leaf falls is the word oneness, or is it loneliness if you count that as an L?
Oh my word.
And
wow.
So,
okay, yours is actually more interesting than mine, but
But wait, there's more.
Oh my goodness.
He had his own personal Turkish typesetter, because when his first book came out, he blew a gasket and he was like, he wanted it to look like how it came out of his typewriter, and it didn't, because it was typeset by hand by the publisher, and he was like, that's not that.
That's not
He
the
would
poem.
say that it wasn't even this poem that he wrote, because it didn't look like the poem he wrote, and
Yeah.
the form of the poem is equally important to the content of the poem. So he's like,
Yes.
that's not my poem, you're full of garbage. And so he imported his own Persian typesetter, who had a contentious, like almost brotherly relationship throughout his career, and he demanded that the rest of his poems were typeset in this certain font, his own font that matched his typewriter, and by this Turkish typesetter whose name I'm forgetting. So here's the funny part.
Well, now you're stumping me. This isn't fair.
No,
I haven't even said mine yet.
I know stuff about this. So so the white space matters, the font matters, the form of the letters matter, everything matters. So tell me yours, and I will find it with my final point that I'm trying to make on this.
All right, so this is one, like you said, you have to see it visually. So I'm going to show it to you, but you're going to have to describe it to everybody. But keep in mind that I wrote this just with a little pink pen, and I don't think that that's how he intended it. So this is by Aram Saroyan.
Okay.
And this is the poem.
And I cannot pronounce what she is showing me. I will challenge her to pronounce it. And so your question is that a poem?
Yes, it is.
And so I say yes, it is a poem.
Okay, so the poem, what he's seeing are the letters Lighght. Light with extra GH. All right, so the reason this is controversial is because people, unlike you, do not everybody thinks it's a poem. But apparently the real controversy was actually not within the poetry community, but within the government.
The government?
Yeah.
How is the government involved in defining poetry?
Because so basically the National Education Association gave Aram Saroyan an award for this poem.
Okay.
It was like $500 or something, in the 60s.
Well deserved.
70s. And some people kind of got up in arms about it, because they were like, why are we giving that much money to a nonsense word? Like, to them the value of art had to be something more tangible, and so they used this to argue why we shouldn't be funding the arts. It didn't go anywhere, but that's part of the controversy around it.
So he got to keep his well-deserved award.
Yeah, he got to keep. No, nobody was. They couldn't stop them from giving the award. It was just that people didn't like it, because they thought it was like, oh, these artsy people, they don't actually contribute anything to society.
So the challenge of the people that would say, like, I don't know what was in the mind of those people back then. But today people would say, if you can't pronounce it, it's not a poem. And but as I showed you with the untitled poem on the page 1 of 95 poems, I'm trying to be respectful to his wishes, is how you interpret it and how you pronounce it. It doesn't have to be pronounceable to be a poem. So people would say that was not a poem, when it clearly, it's in a book called 95 Poems. There you go. Yeah. And so it clearly is, but you can't really read it. And I mean, you can read it, but you can't really read it aloud.
Yeah, and I actually have a quote from this is from the Poetry Foundation by Ian Daly. He says, what you're left with, and this is from his description of the poem, what you're left with is more sensation than thought. The poem doesn't describe luminosity. The poem is luminosity.
Ooh, I got goosebumps when you said that. Good quote. I mean, no, I'm serious. I'm not joking. No joke. No cap.
Yeah, like, part of the point is just that visually it makes you pause. Like, if it just said light, that doesn't do anything, but the extra letters actually kind of let you linger on it a little longer.
Correct. The extra letters allow the word to linger as well.
Mm.
So over the summer, or maybe it's been a year now, I judged at a forensics tournament, and I can't reveal the results or what my vote was, but I was very impressed, we'll leave it at that, by an ASL poet, and who could speak, but he some argued he had an unfair advantage because he was ASLing, he was sign languaging his poem, which underscored the words that were coming out of his mouth. And then when there was a stanza that was all ASL and there were no words and it was all sign language, like if it were printed, it had to be printed in the hands, right? And it was one of the most powerful poems I've heard this
That's
year.
incredible.
Yeah, and maybe we'll talk about those in a future episode, because there's a couple of YouTube videos of those, and
Yeah, that sounds really cool.
yeah, and it's not pronounceable. Those stanzas
Yeah.
aren't pronounceable. He
Yeah.
wasn't just like when you see someone in the captioning doing a speech or whatever. He wasn't doing that. He was illustrating with ASL the theme of it, what it was, his
Yeah.
poem was.
Very cool.
The theme of that poem was that people were trying to exclude him from the event, the event that he was in. The poem was
Wow.
about being excluded from the event. It was very meta, from the event
Wow.
he was in of poetry interpretation or poetry
Wow.
interp. And like, after you saw his 7-minute poem, there's no way that anyone would have voted to throw him out of that throw him out of that tournament, because it was very powerful.
Wow. What's our call to action?
But wait, I have to show you this thing.
Okay, pretend I didn't say that. Just cut that.
No, you don't have to cut it. So E. Cummings said that any poem not in his font set by match his typewriter was not only not his poem, it wasn't a poem. It's not the thing that he created. So it was a bunch of characters on a piece of paper. So I happen to have, we will not put this in the bookstore or the whatever. I have the Norton Anthology of Literature, the very academic, scholarly academic final word on literature.
Wow.
Here's that poem on page 663 in a different font. Whoa. In a different form. In the letters are not even in the same pattern as they are in E. Cummings' book.
Wow.
This is not his poem. Page 663 is fake news in the Norton Anthology of Literature, and I wrote a paper on it.
Amazing. I love it. Love it.
That is the final.
Now, my students are getting into the poetry unit, and we're using that book, so it's going to come up next week.
You're using this book?
Yeah. Because that's the one I learned. That's the one I learned how to use. So
I'll send you my paper, but it's not as good as when I perform it live.
You should definitely give it to me, and I'll share it with my students.
And so remind me to do that. Okay, yes. So today's call to action. Yes. So trusting your gut. You actually looped in the other people, like where you had experts and agents and managers and experts look at it and give you opinions. So those outsiders informed your instincts, right? Mm-hmm. Or they were the pencil sharpener that sharpened your instincts.
Yeah.
So do you know that there's a guy in the Bible called Barnabas? Do you know Barnabas in the Bible?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do you know what his name was before it was Barnabas? It's not Stump Emily. Do you know?
No.
So one of my students actually found the answer to this because I didn't know. And so it's Joseph. Like that's a pretty safe guess. If it's not Jesus, it's gonna be Joseph, right? Because there's a million Josephs in the Bible. It's not any of the other famous Josephs that you know. It's the Joseph that eventually became Barnabas. And so this isn't Sunday school time, don't worry. And or maybe it is. But the call to action is, so the way Barnabas got his name, do you know how he became Barnabas?
I'm trying to remember. Barnabas is the one who worked with Paul, correct?
Correct.
I know the story, but I've forgotten it.
So so Barnabas was he was the guy of the most generous guy in the neighborhood,
Yes,
in
yes, I
the
remember
town.
this.
And so if you needed a hospital built, you went to
Yes.
Barnabas and he wrote the check. He in history books, not even in the Bible, he was the guy that like went to the farmers market, bought all the produce from all the farmers, and then handed it out to the people in the
Yeah.
town for free. He was just like everyone. He was Mike Moretta. Everyone loved him. And super generous. And so the name Barnabas means generous benefactor. That's what the name
Ah, okay.
means. But how did he get that name? The
By being
town
that.
got together and voted and legally changed
Wow.
his name from Joseph to Barnabas because he was so known for that personality trait. So my call to action is, if your town where you live now were to vote and name you for what you are known for, what would your town name you? What would your
Whoa.
Barnabas name be?
I
There you go.
love it.
That's my call to action.
I love it.
See how I tied it in with the big idea?
I gotcha. I gotcha. All right, everybody. So be sure to, well, okay, we've got a mystery bag coming up, but first be sure to like and subscribe.
Oh,
Share
yeah.
this with your friends. Comment on our call to action. So comment in the YouTube comments or on our website or on the Facebook page, because we would love to hear your thoughts. Not even just on the call to action, but love to hear any. We are starting a conversation through this podcast and you get to finish it. So talk about these things and let us know what you think.
I also learned this week that when you listen, when you listen to this podcast, and not on YouTube, but you listen to it in wherever, Spotify or iTunes or wherever you listen to your podcast, if you follow us, it boosts us in the algorithm,
Yeah.
even if you don't listen to us.
The same thing if you leave a review. Leaving reviews is also a great way to help other people find us.
So we would love for you, we're pleading to you, to follow us, and we want you to listen to us. Get back to listening to us the next time you're in the car or whatever.
Yeah.
But follow us like right now. Pause this video before Mystery Bag comes and follow us, and that will help us expose ourselves to more people.
All right. So is this going to be the day?
This is the day where you're gonna say, if she gets this right, what the reward is.
Well, no, the reward
or the punishment, I should say.
I'm saying, is this the day that I'm going to get it right?
Oh, I thought you were going to say, what if you do get it right?
If I do get it right, something happens.
So if she gets it right, something happens that I don't even know if the words can come out of my mouth of what happens.
It's a mystery.
If she gets it right.
It's gonna be a mystery. It's gonna be a mystery until it happens.
Oh, really? So we're not going to tell them what happens if you get it right. We're not telling them the stakes. I thought today was the day we were going to reveal the stakes. Oh, okay. All right.
Okay, tell them then. Tell them.
No, I like it being a mystery.
Okay.
I like that. I misunderstood the assignment.
Okay.
All right. Are you ready?
No.
Oh, okay. Go get another dog. Go in the other room and go get another dog.
I don't remember what I guessed last time.
Well, so it's funny that you said that, because in the Bob's episode, you said the same thing. You're like, I can't remember what I guessed last time, as if your previous guess like somehow impacts what I'm going to pull out of this bag.
But doesn't it though?
Why? You could guess the same. I don't know. I'm not a math person, but you could guess the same letter every day, every time.
Yeah, but that would be. I thought of that because it's a good strategy. But wouldn't it be boring?
Oh,
all right.
Okay.
I'm gonna guess A. I think I've already guessed that one, but
You've guessed that before.
I'm gonna guess.
That's your guess. That's your guess. No, you go through.
Nope.
Go with your instinct.
I'm gonna guess S.
Oh, so you get two guesses. Now, what if it's A? Now, what am I gonna do? It's no fair. You brought in a ringer too. You brought in, Winnie to vote. sorry to tell you, but it is E. It is Bob's guess from a previous episode.
At least it's not A, because that would be devastating.
That would be. So another exciting episode of Right Better Together. And it was true because look at all those things we included them this time.
Yep.
Yep. So it's true when we say what? What do we say?
We say
We
that
couldn't
we
have
couldn't have done it without you.